Warning, this video may contain details of graphic content. This channel is for mature audiences only. Some viewers might find this disturbing. Elizabeth Baraza, better known as Liz, was born on June 26, 1989 in Elk Grove Village, Illinois. As a child, her and her family moved to Texas, where she spent the rest of her life. She was described as having a big heart. She loved her family, friends, and shared her love with the strangers she did not know. Speaking of big hearts, Liz would visit children at the Memorial Hermann Hospital in full cosplay attire. She was a Star Wars fanatic. I could only imagine how happy this made the children feel. On February 1st, 2014, Liz and her husband Sergio Barraza married. They were both happy and felt like they found a soulmate in one another. They both shared similar passions that included Star Wars and Harry Potter. Her and Sergio had a passion for cosplaying. They would cosplay at theme parks as well as conventions. Liz and Sergio bought a home in the neighborhood of a small town called Tomball, Texas. Tomball was just 30 miles outside of Houston. The small town housed about 12,000 people. In January of 2019, Liz and Sergio decided to go on a trip to Universal Studios in Orlando, Florida for their 5th year wedding anniversary to visit the Harry Potter attraction. They were extremely excited about this trip. The couple had their bags packed and was just 48 hours away from their vacay. To make some extra cash for their trip, Liz decided to host a yard sale in front of their house. On the morning of January 25th, around 6:48 a.m., Sergio headed off to work. Meanwhile, Liz wasted no time preparing for the yard sale. She planned to host later that morning. Just 4 minutes later, at 6:52 a.m., a neighbor's surveillance camera captured a dark-colored Nissan Frontier Pro 4X crew cab, model 2013 or newer, pulling up in front of their residence. An unidentified individual with long hair, or possibly a wig, and wearing what appeared to be a robe, exited the truck and approached Liz. Our doorbell camera recorded a brief conversation between them, followed by 4 gunshots. The killer quickly returned to their truck and fled the scene. Strangely, the killer's vehicle was later caught on a neighbor's Ring camera, circling back to Liz's home to probably see if they had finished the job. Upon hearing the gunshots, concerned neighbors called 911. She was rushed to the hospital, where she was pronounced dead the next morning. Oddly enough, she died at the same hospital where she had been a cherished volunteer. Sweet Liz was an organ donor, and she saved the lives of 4 other individuals. Liz suffered 3 gunshot wounds, one to the face, one on the side of her head, and another one in her chest area. Once Sergio arrived to work, he stated that he and Liz's parents began receiving alerts on their phones. A family member stated, quote, "My phone beeped to say that I had a message, so I checked it out and it was a notification that her alarm had gone off," end quote. Once the family arrived to the Baraza residence, they were greeted by a crime scene and were informed Elizabeth had been shot and rushed to the hospital. Sergio stated, quote, "So I started driving home, and as I was driving home, I was reviewing more and more of the Ring door footage until I found that, or heard her scream and gunshots in it. My world just stopped right in my heart, like skipped," end quote. As I stated before, a neighbor's Ring camera picked up the entire shooting, which was a big piece of investigators' evidence into finding out who killed Elizabeth. Days later, friends, family members, co-workers, and other acquaintances of Liz gathered in the front yard of the Baraza residence to participate in a vigil. During this heartfelt gathering, each individual brought a toy wand or lightsaber, raising them into the air as a tribute to her. her life to healing and spreading love and cheer to everyone, strangers, end quote. He reiterated a similar sentiment at a press conference organized by Houston Crime Stoppers. Sergio also spoke at that same press conference. The Harris County Sheriff's Office took charge of the investigation into the shooting death of Elizabeth Barraza, responding to the crime scene on the day of the incident. They secured the area around the crime scene for several hours, conducting interviews with Sergio, Elizabeth's husband, inside their home. Initial inquiries focused on individuals close to the couple, speculating that the perpetrator might have had a connection with either Elizabeth or her husband. Harris County Lieutenant Jeff Stopper, addressing the media, stated, quote, "Our victim was laying in the driveway with multiple gunshot wounds. Looks very deliberate to me," end quote. Homicide Detective Michael Ritchie added, quote, "It was very quick, it was very calculated, very cold-blooded in how it was done. I do believe that more than one person was involved in this, and I do believe that there are some people out there that maybe have a suspicion that somebody they know might have been involved with this," end quote. Despite extensive efforts, investigators struggled to identify any motive related to Elizabeth or Sergio. Those who knew the couple characterized them as normal, with Elizabeth being described as a kind and caring person, making it difficult to fathom her involvement in such a tragic event. The absence of shell casings at the crime scene suggested the use of a revolver, posing a significant challenge to the investigation by leaving minimum forensic evidence, shell casings, DNA, or hair fibers. Reports surfaced about the shooter handing Elizabeth an item before the attack, possibly a note. Though authorities have not confirmed this speculation, surveillance cameras in the neighborhood played a crucial role establishing a timeline for the shooter's vehicle, identified as a dark, older model Nissan Frontier Pro 4X. The footage indicated it was likely a 2013 or newer model with 4 doors, a distinctive feature in an area where Ford and Chevy trucks are more common. The truck had been observed in footage the night before, raising the possibility of premeditation. From the security footage, investigators compiled a description of the individual approaching Elizabeth in her driveway, appearing to be a woman based on relative size and a feminine body build. Shortly after the shooting occurred, investigators promptly shared footage with the public, aiming to share recognition of either the involved vehicle or the killer. In a press conference held just days after the tragic incident, Houston Crime Stoppers declared its word for information that could lead to the apprehension of Elizabeth's killer. This substantial reward was collectively raised by her friends and fellow Star Wars cosplayers from the 501st Legion. During this press conference, investigators, along with family members of Elizabeth, addressed the media in a public forum for the first time, analyzing the surveillance footage released by the Harris County Sheriff's Office, providing insight into the unknown individual responsible for Elizabeth Baraza's death. To begin with, the assailant drove a 2013 or newer Nissan Frontier, captured by multiple cameras in the Baraza neighborhood. In the initial police footage, the individual is observed parking across the street from Elizabeth and Sergio's home, leaving the engine running as they exit to commit the crime in the driveway. The act of running in front of the idling truck's headlights suggests a solitary act, as an accomplice will likely exit from the passenger side for a quicker getaway. This vehicle was observed driving through the neighborhood both before and after the crime, as confirmed by investigators. The presence of the vehicle on surveillance footage the night before the shooting and before Sergio left for work at 6:48 a.m. raises questions about the perpetrator's intentions, waiting for Sergio to depart or possibly targeting a lone victim that morning. As for the shooter, the ability to swiftly run away from the crime scene implies physical fitness, eliminating the likelihood of an elderly or out-of-shape individual. However, a detailed description is hindered by the attire, resembling a large robe or seems feminine, the subsequent actions, such as using the right hand to grip the handgun and displaying minimal recoil, suggest a more masculine demeanor. The shooter's choice of a small caliber revolver, evident from the lack of shell casings at the scene, suggests closeness and experience. The outfit worn by the assailant raises suspicions of a deliberate disguise or costume, fueling online discussions about the individual's true identity and motive. Parking strategically across the street from cameras in the neighborhood's blind spot and remaining just out of reach of the Baraza's doorbell camera further complicates the identification process. In the months following the tragic shooting, authorities diligently combed the local area in search of any trace of the truck involved in the morning's events. They combed through footages from every camera within a radius around the crime scene, hoping to trace the vehicle's path post-shooting. Several months later, reports surfaced that the Harris County Sheriff's Office had reached out to the Texas Rangers, seeking their expertise to aid in the investigation. Around August 2019, approximately 6 months after Elizabeth's tragic murder, it was disclosed that investigators were eagerly anticipating the outcome of a warrant that Elizabeth's father believed could possibly break the case. However, by January 2020, the first anniversary of the shooting, the results of this warrant remained pending and investigators remained tight-lipped about its specific focus. Speculation among observers suggested it might be related to cell phone location data, possibly aimed at tracking individuals in the area during the specific time of the incident. Another possibility raised was footage from local traffic cameras, a process that would necessitate a considerable amount of time for analysts. Addressing this warrant, Harris County Homicide Detective Michael Ritchie stated, quote, "I feel that the results of that warrant will be critical in the investigation and most likely will expose the suspect and who was responsible for this," end quote. Subsequently, investigators began discussing one of the more unsettling aspects of the case: the shooter's return to the crime scene after initially fleeing. It was believed that this return was an attempt to ensure Elizabeth's death and prevent any chance of her recovering. Elizabeth's father, Paul Newell, conveyed his perspective to reporters in 2020, stating, quote, "Them circling back and driving back by the house literally a few moments later is proof there is something bigger at work here," end quote. Detective Michael Ritchie spoke to reporters with people in the previous year, also shared his thoughts, quote, "I feel they contacted somebody and said, hey, the job's done, and then the person said, are you sure? And they turned around and drove by the scene one more time," end quote. The residence was brought to another family as Sergio decided to sell it in the year following Elizabeth's tragic murder. In conversations with the media, he expressed concerns for his safety, a sentiment understandable given the brutal and still unresolved nature of Liz's killing in their front yard. Coupled with the emotional trauma from this perplexing incident, his decision to move is grounded in more than sufficient justification. Within the online sleuthing community, those with harbor suspicions about Sergio's potential involvement in this crime. However, despite his high level of cooperation with investigators and the reported absence of evidence suggesting any extramarital affairs or inappropriate relationships at the time of the murder, some still point to his behavior immediately after the incident as an indication of guilt. It's crucial to remember that individuals cope with grief differently, and it is irresponsible to pass judgment on someone's actions in the aftermath of such a public and tragic loss. The police maintain that no suspects have been ruled out and everyone remains under consideration in their ongoing investigation. So after Elizabeth's passing, Sergio moved forward with his life, maintaining close ties with Elizabeth's family. With Liz's father, he has been working on the Star Wars replica R2 unit dedicated to Liz, a positive endower emerging from an otherwise heartbreaking loss, a tribute that if she were here, Liz would likely appreciate. In Liz's honor, a Make-A-Wish Foundation has been established by the Peter EU Foundation, founded by the actor who portrayed Chewbacca in the Star Wars film could remain. As the recording of this video, Elizabeth Baraza's case is still unsolved. Individuals with relevant information are urged to contact Houston Crime Stoppers at 713-222-8477.